Hey, good morning everybody. You join me in the glorious English countryside. This image is what we all aspire to. We all absolutely love it. We talk about it, the glorious green English countryside. Look at it. Isn't it beautiful? I'm born and raised here. I love it. I've always totally appreciated it. But it's only unfortunately in recent times that I've looked again at our green and pleasant land. Look closely and you'll realise that everything around me, all of this big green area here, all of the trees in the distance, even the hedges, everything about this is totally and utterly man-made. There is no wild in England. Everything you can see, as far as the eye can see, is because of man. Man's influence, man's desire to cultivate, to control. And as a result, we have no wild anymore. And this is the really sad thing and the really sad thought that I've just been having as I'm walking along now. All around. We love it, we adore it, but it's not real, it's not wild. What we're looking at is one giant farm, one giant factory, one giant garden. Look, this is a lawn. The trees and the hedges are planted like they are flower beds. And as a result, when we throw our hands up in dismay saying, where are all our species going? Why are there no insects here anymore? Where are the birds all going? Well, ta-da! We've caused it. When the migrant birds fly past, when the insects try to land to lay their eggs, they discover that there's nothing here for them anymore. We've taken this beautiful landscape of hills and valleys and flat areas, forests, scrubland, low grassland, heath, you name it. We had such a massive variety of landscapes once before we humans decided that we know better. We want to manage this area. We want to create, we want to cultivate this land for our food, for our recreation, for everything. As a result, we turned massive diversity into what's known as monoculture, meaning one species is grown. Behind me is this field. We think, wonderful, it's a field. But when you look, it's one species. That one species is cultivated just for feeding to animals, allowing the sheep and the cows, again, which are monoculture, one species. We've turned this green and pleasant land, this beautiful landscape we call England, into this giant farm, this giant factory farm. And that's why we can't throw our hands up anymore and say, why have we got no diversity here? But we've created it. There's no place for nature anymore. What was once diversity and richness in landscape and habitat has now gone in favour of this rolling flat landscape of nothingness, of farmland. And this is why we have no excuse. We have no reason to question why are there no insects? Why is there no diversity? Why is there no mammals? Because there's no space for them anymore. We've pushed them out. When the migrants go by, when the insects try to land, there's no food, there's no niches, there's no place anymore for them. Because all we've presented them with is this, a giant lawn of nothingness. So what do we expect? It's a really sad thought that what I know now about biodiversity doesn't exist in England anymore, apart from in very few places, and one of them is right here. If I turn around, look, all around me you can see the green and verdant land of England, albeit it's a giant farm unfortunately. But when you turn to here, look, this little teeny spot here, surrounded on all sides by barbed wire. It's a river, a little river, but as a result of it being a river, it's barbed wired around to stop the animals coming in, but as a result, diversity. Look at the richness, look at the layers from ground level all the way up to these big old areas here. This wonderful comfrey, which is the food plant for the scarlet tiger moth. You've got reeds, you've got cow parsley, you've got just diversity of textures of foods, and as a result, if we listen, the insects, this is where they are. This is like a mini nature reserve. This is diversity. Whereas out here is blandness and nothingness, a giant lawn, a giant garden, where we can't expect nature to survive anymore because there's no place for it. We've flattened it, we fertilised it, we chop it all down a couple of times a year. There's no place for nature here anymore. Whereas here, richness. If we could only integrate our farmland into this wild fodder, if only we could encourage this to be created over here, to integrate wild landscapes and habitats and textures, food plants, the whole shebang, that will attract the animals back because it gives them a niche, it gives them places to live, to breed, to feed. That is no good. This is wonderful. I am a meat eater. I love my food. I love my steak, I love my chicken, I love my lamb, but I don't want it fed on that. That is just uniformity, bland sugars, basic regulation-driven foods. Whereas this, wild fodder, is what it's all about when it comes to feeding our wild animals and the food that we eat. I'd much rather have a steak that's been born and raised and fed upon this. It's had diversity, it's had richness in its life, it's had a wonderful experience of food. That in turn goes into its meat, gives it flavour, gives it character. Whereas out there, it's just grass, it's barrenness. That's not what wild cows eat. Wild sheep don't eat that. They eat variety, and here it is. So the only way our future is going to be rich, is going to be diverse, is if we integrate this into our farmland, into our way of agriculture. Only this will create a future for us and our foods, but also a future for our animals, for our diversity. Only if we integrate this into our wild way of agriculture will it create a truly different way for the future.